Joe Goodhue.
I move that the question be now put.
No, I'm calling the Honourable Member Carmel Cepoloni.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair, and I do apologise because I think I've taken 3 calls on this bill tonight in committee stages and I haven't acknowledged you in your new role there as the Assistant Speaker. So, Mr Chair, I acknowledge you in that role. Congratulate you. Thank you.
Point of order, the Honourable Minister Simon Power.
Well, Mr Speaker, like many in this committee, I too am pleased that you're back in the chair. But as members will be aware...
It's not a point of order.
It is actually, because it goes to clarifying an issue. And that is that the House itself has not actually agreed to have you permanently as an Assistant Speaker, although we have given leave for you to act in that capacity for the next 3 days. Now, that doesn't take away anything from the contribution that you're currently making, and we're all very grateful for the level of competency that you're bringing to the role. But I think, in fairness, we don't want to waste those congratulatory messages at this early stage when it would preempt the House taking a decision more formally on that issue.
Thank you, Minister. I call the Honourable Rick Barker.
Mr Chairman, I want to speak to the point of order raised by the Honourable Simon Power and to say that whilst his point of order is heartfelt and well meant,
that is true.
I want to say that there's nothing wrong with this House congratulating the Honourable Member Ross Robertson more than once for his elevation to that. So it's not out of order to congratulate him for his temporary position, and that doesn't mean to say we can't then later congratulate him for when it becomes permanent. So I think the member making the congratulations is entirely in order, and I'm sure the whole of the House would join with her in that.
Thank you, gentlemen. I call the Honourable Member Carmel Cepoloni.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I'm speaking to Part 3 of the bill, Mr Chair, which is really about the Commission's functions in relation to issuers and operators. The bill gives, when looking at this part of the bill gives the Commission the power to require a trustee, statutory supervisor or unit trustee to attest to the Commission as to whether the trustee or supervisor is satisfied that an issuer has not breached an issuer obligation in a material respect. If the trustee, statutory supervisor or unit trustee is unable to do so, the trustee or supervisor must report details of the issuer's breach or possible breach to the Commission. A duty is imposed on a trustee, statutory supervisor or unit trustee who believes that an issuer has breached, may have breached or is likely to breach an issuer obligation to report the breach to the Commission and advise the Commission of any steps that the trustee or supervisor intends to take. A trustee supervisor must also inform the Commission if they become aware of information on the basis of which the trustee or supervisor could reasonably form the opinion that an issuer is unable or likely to be able to pay its debts, or the valuer of the issuer's assets is less than or is likely to be less than the value of its liabilities. And that really is the gist of Section 3, Mr Chair. And I want to go back to, just reinforcing why Labour supports this bill, because the reform of the ways that trustees and statutory supervisors operate is essential for the prevention of another financial collapse. So, hence why Labour is taking this bill very seriously, hence why we are supporting it. But we do need to recognise that that across this House, I think there's a shared understanding that there does need to be greater transparency in this area, and really people won't want to hear this, but that is really evident by the government's handling of the South Canterbury finance situation. And just to remind the House again, and we all know this to be the case, this really was the largest financial collapse in New Zealand history. It really highlighted the need to have transparency in the sector, and although, we may debate the issue of the South Canterbury finance situation and the collapse of it. Obviously, we agree that there needs to be changes here in the sector and that there does need to be increased transparency. Mr Chair, there were and there are serious questions about why South Canterbury Finance was not put in statutory management and why the Retail Deposit Guarantee Scheme was extended despite the negative rating in the state of the audited accounts. But hopefully, with regards to what I've discussed in Section 3 of this bill, that will create some of the transparency that we need to ensure that we don't head down this path again, that we don't end up in the same situation, that we don't end up with a lot of New Zealanders asking questions about what the government's doing and what really happened with South Canterbury Finance. Where is the accountability and where is the transparency, which really were the questions that New Zealanders were left asking with that collapse. And here we are with this bill in front of us and the aspects of it that I just discussed in Section 3 that will hopefully ensure that in the future we don't end up in a similar or the same situation. And I'm sure Kiwis across the country will be relieved that we are looking at this, that we are across the House we can agree on some things, and that we are Labour is supporting this bill and alongside National and other parties as well. So it's not without reservations, and we've said it throughout the debate when discussing this bill, but in general we still do support it.
Call the honourable member Michael Woodhouse.
I move that the question be now put.
I call